What do you think is so engaging about music survival programs?
Hmm. I think it's a few things. One, at least for me, it's a peek behind the curtains. You're peering into the minds of these judges, people like YG and JYP who hold the key to this industry. So seeing how they go about this process that we don't usually get to see and how they evaluate performances, how someone becomes an idol, what it takes, the hardships they go through. Another thing I think is you start getting attached to these trainees, and once you start rooting for your favorite and you get emotionally invested, that's when you're hooked. That's when you're hooked, and you can't help but watch the rest of the show and see their journey. And finally, I think a lot of fans like the idea of I've been there since day one. You're discovering these talents before they're stars. You're watching them fight for their lives on these shows. You're going through their sweat and the tears, and you see them come out on the other end of this battle, getting to debut. It's a satisfying emotional rush at the end of it. Sometimes those could be some things, but what is it that made you watch these shows?
So I don't typically watch music survival programs
Hmm.
actually, but like in the case of Produce, obviously it was just such a huge national phenomenon
Yeah,
that I felt compelled to watch Produce.
yeah.
As far as what I think is appealing, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I just want to add basically, I think being able to view the K-pop training process
Yeah.
in that type of format is really interesting for people. And like you said, when you were there watching them grow
Hmm.
and form the group at the end, I think that's what's really appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do you actually watch a lot of these programs?
So, oh man, I used to watch them. I don't know a lot, but a lot more frequently. You know, the produced shows, of course. I loved JYP's Nizzy project. I'm a big Niju fan. I watched The Unit. I don't know how many people watched that one. And then after, I don't even remember Mix 9. That was YG's survival show
Yeah, of
in
course.
2017.
Very controversial.
But exactly, right? So a lot of different trainees and or current idols from different companies, guys and girls. It was after that show I became a lot more picky about what I watched. I probably was a little jaded because I enjoyed it, but I found a lot of new idols and trainees. There was the pre-debut Ryujin, who's now an ITZY, was in there. A lot of ATEEZ member, Dreamcatcher members were in there. Playback, a girl group not many people
I
know,
love playback.
but the members were able to get some spotlight on that show and even excel. But yeah, it ultimately went nowhere. The winning group never saw the light of day together. Plans fell through, and my surviving show viewing habits became much more selective after that. Do you watch anything besides Produce?
I mean, I've seen clips here or there, but what I really love about the survival music programs is seeing these trainees, the amount of hard work that they put into the craft.
Yeah, yeah,
I think for me personally, that's one of my favorite things. But
yeah.
there has been a huge deluge of these survival music programs, and I think people are really tuning out.
Yeah, that like we said, getting a peek behind the process, it's not a new thing anymore. We've seen it a lot. And so it's not that much of a draw anymore.
Yeah, and you're seeing the results of it with the groups that come out of these programs. They're not as
Yeah.
successful as, for example, the K-pop star contestants or the produce groups. But did you ever watch a show called Idol School?
Idol School was a bit of a unique one for me. I started the show because I was rooting for Natty. She was previously on JYP 16 survival show, which would ultimately create twice. And while I thought it was completely the right decision for Natty to not end up in that final lineup, she was extremely talented, but too young in my opinion. But I still wanted to see her succeed, in life. So G1 was also a 16 participant who would go on to Idol School. So I wanted to follow her journey on that show as well. But very early on, Natty's clips were the ones kind of blowing up. So it would make sense. She already had so much exposure, and it seemed like she was definitely going to make it at the time. The video of her singing Into the New World, which again I think is a rite of passage, got a lot of amazing responses. So I wasn't really worried about her anymore. And I only started watching the Idol School performances when they would come out. So technically, I didn't watch the show from beginning to end, but I kept up very closely with it.
Well, today, on the heels of Promise Nine's final performance as a full group of 8, we look back at the last 7 years of Promise Nine. We're going to evaluate their legacy so far and discuss what their future may hold. Welcome to Diaries of an MZ Generation, where we discuss Korean culture, music, and entertainment. This is episode 5. I'm Ellis Tan, and today is Friday, February 7th, 2025. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Lee. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm good, but today's episode's a little bit of a sad one. So, how about you? How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little bit anxious as usual. I'm always anxious before a big trip, and we have the Korea trip coming up in a week or two, actually like a week and a half. So I'm a little bit anxious for that.
Yeah, same.
But excited to do this show. Promise Nine, really love that group.
Yep.
Do you have like a favorite memory of Promise Nine?
I'll give you 2 because one of them popped in my head. The first one is
1 + 1.
1 plus. So I'll give you 2. One more directly related to Promise Nine, one more adjacent. The first one is probably them winning their first career music show with Talk and Talk. First of all, I love that song. I think we discussed it. We both discussed that song in the first episode. Shameless plug, go listen.
Yeah, it's my ringtone.
Yeah, it was their first trophy. At the time, I was thinking this is where their careers would progress to the next level, and they would go on to win more with other songs. And looking back, I'm really happy that it happened with all 9 members. One of my favorite Promise Nine adjacent memories was, if you remember this, our trip to Singapore and Malaysia last year. There was one morning, and I think it's because we continued it from the previous night, where we woke up and we just started watching a bunch of Promise Nine videos. It's not like we were cycling through a bunch of different groups. I remember it being specifically Promise Nine. I think it stemmed from our conversation about seeing them in person. But yeah, that's one of the core memories I have from that trip. Besides waking up with me and watching Promise Nine together, what are the memories that stick out to you?
So I gave you this question because I had one particular memory in mind that I wanted to talk about. And I think I actually showed you this clip. So back in 2019 KCON,
yes,
Promise Nine was one of the guests or attendees of that convention and concert.
Yes.
And during the M Countdown stage, after Promise Nine finished their performances, they were getting off the stage, and I was near the stairs at the exit. And as their captain, Lee Se-rom, was walking away, I called out to her, and I was like, "Romse, Romse!" And she turned around and waved to me.
Oh,
so
I'm so jealous.
That probably is my top highlight
of
seeing Promise Nine and remembering Promise Nine.
So jealous.
But when it comes to Promise Nine, though, they've had a relatively much more eventful career compared to most other girl groups. And we've got a jam-packed episode, so let's get started right away, beginning with the origin of the group, Idol School. So the group Promise Nine actually is a survival show program group from the show Idol School, and the name Promise actually means from Idol School. And it's kind of a mix of the word promise and from Idol School. And there was 9 members, so that is the origin of the name Promise Nine. They consisted of 9 members. The captain that I mentioned earlier, Lee Se-rom, she was ranked number 3 from the show. The vice captain, Song Ha-young, who was number 2. Jang Gyuri, who was number 9. No Ji-sun, who was number 1. She actually took first place on that show. Park Ji-won, who was number 6. Lee So-yeon, who was number 7. Lee Chae-young, who was number 4. Lee Nak-young, who was number 5. And the maknae, Baek Ji-hun, who was number 8. So Justin, tell me, did you have a Promise Nine bias?
For Promise Nine, I have what I call the Holy Trinity. When it comes to biases, when I become a fan of a group, I never look at them and try to decide who it is. I just try to let it happen. And for this group, I can't get past these three members, the Holy Trinity. First of all is Captain Serom. Oh, Captain, my Captain. When I saw her, her eyes immediately caught my attention. When I think about beautiful eyes, Itzy's Yeji is obviously on that list. And one of them for me is also Serom. But the other thing was the respect that all the other girls seemed to have for her really caught my attention. I remember one of the members specifically saying, whatever Serom does, I will do because she's just so cool. And she was the captain. She had the experience to back it up. I love her voice tone. I always know when it's her singing. And she had the ability to lead 8 other girls from different walks of life and different companies. So I have a lot of respect and admiration for that. I love her.
And you mentioned in a previous episode that you thought After School's Gahi was a little bit different with her physically. She's a little bit of a different stature.
Yeah.
Serom was also, she kind of looks like she could be an Olympic athlete or something.
Yeah. Washboard abs. I think they washboard abs. Especially we saw them at Waterbomb, which I'm sure we'll get to later. Second member in this trinity is Chaeyoung. From the start of Idol School, she was already hilarious. I love her personality, her energy brought another dynamic to the group. And come on, she's gorgeous, right? So, and finally, Soyeon. I love Soyeon so much. I think she is absolutely underrated. Go watch her singing videos. She has an amazing voice, very unique sounding tone within the group. So a little deeper, a little raspier. She can rap when she needs to. And that's probably because of her background as a YG trainee. Soyeon has been doing this for so long. She's in the infamous Future 21 video that many K-pop fans have seen, especially if you're a second-gen fan. If you watch GD and Top's music video for Knockout, there are 2 little girls dancing with them. One of them is Soyeon. She was so cute in that with her little YG attitude. And yeah, again, I feel like she deserves a lot more attention than she gets, which is why I try to tout the greatness of Soyeon whenever I can. Who's your bias?
So for me, I would have to say my one pick is Serom.
Oh,
I generally am a fan of leaders, that type of personality. So I was a big fan of Serom. But one of the reasons why I love Promise 9 so much is because all of their members have such great charms and talents that are really interesting to me personally. So, you had a trifecta.
Yeah.
It's so hard. I'm just gonna list maybe my top 4.
Oh, I'm so glad that you have more than me.
Yeah, I'll take the hit on this one. I'll take the bullet.
Good, thank you.
So Serom was always my favorite for a long time.
Did the interaction have anything to do with that?
No, that's why I
screamed her name.
Specifically called out to her during 2019 KCON.
Yeah.
But aside from her, their personalities are so fun, right? So I really like Hayoung. She is kind of an ace all arounder, and just her dolphin notes, her whistle register is insane to me.
Yeah.
Ji-sun, no mercy. She's just fun. Love her. I mean, she was number 1, right? So
yeah.
in the ranking. And Nakyoung, super cute, adorable. But Jihan,
yes,
when she first came out, I wasn't that big of a fan of hers, but something about her eye smile and her personality, her hardworking nature as far as education.
Yeah.
Like she went back to school. She made sure to be in university.
She did those like study with me live streams or videos. That's like I distinctly remember doing.
Yeah. So it was very charming. So honestly, it's just so hard to pick for Promise 9.
Tell me about it.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm a big fan of the group.
Yeah.
So Promise 9, before they debuted, actually came out with a song called Glass Shoes, Yurikudu, and they performed that song on Mama, which is the Mnet Asian Music Awards in Japan. They performed it in November of 2017. So that was the pre-debut song. That was actually the first time I had heard of Promise 9 because I didn't watch the survival program like Justin. So that was the first time I heard of them. I saw that performance and I really loved that song actually. So I looked up the group and I started learning more about them. And then just 2 short months after that performance, Promise 9 would debut with their first single, To Heart. Within that same year, they came out with Dugun Dugun and Love Bomb. So typical of a lot of K-pop girl groups, they started out with a fresh and bright youthful concept.
Mm-hmm.
But around this time, Produce 48 was happening, and Gyuri would leave the group to join that survival program. Do you think that affected the group at all?
I don't know if it negatively impacted them, but I'm not sure how much it significantly helped them either. At this point, if I remember correctly, fromis9 were doing okay, comeback to comeback. I understand them bringing Gyuri on the show to get more exposure from the group while leaving enough members to continue promoting as fromis9. Would I have done it? I would lean toward no. I probably wouldn't have separated her so early on in their careers when fans are getting to know them outside of idol school. But I don't know, maybe it was ultimately a good thing. Maybe it did bring them more fans. You know, at this point, their numbers were steadily going up, and maybe that played a part. Out of all the people listening, I would love to know how many actually got into Fromis specifically because of Produce 48. What do you think?
Well, I know around Love Bomb era, like between Dugun Dugun and Love Bomb, there was a big growth of fromis9 fans. That was around the time where they first attended KCON in 2018. And when they first attended KCON, like nobody knew them.
Yeah.
I remember going to KCON and going to their fan engagement. Back then, you would need tickets to go to the fan engagements. And it was not difficult to get a ticket for them at all because back then people would try to buy and sell KCON fan engagement tickets.
Yeah.
And I was able to get a high touch for fromis9 for $20 at the time. Very few people knew who fromis9 were.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was a big growth around that time. Gyuri wasn't there because she was in the middle of the show. But do you remember her reasoning for leaving and joining Produce?
I don't. Was there a specific reason?
Yeah, so it was actually really big news at the time because obviously she had just debuted as part of a group. And typically Produce is for trainees who have never debuted before. So that's part of the reason why Gyuri didn't make it through to the end, as well as Eunbin, who was going to be in CLC because Cube announced that she was going to be in CLC regardless of what happened. People stopped voting for her. But Gyuri, because she was number 9, she was the last rank in idol school. She felt that she was lacking in a lot of ways. So that's why she ended up joining Produce 48.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so you didn't remember that, but
That is interesting. I did not remember that.
So after Produce 48, the girls were reunited as 9, and then they came back with the title track Fun. And they went to KCON after that. That was the experience that I had with Serum. That was after that comeback. And they were doing really well. That Fun music video was really fun. They had like the fake advertisements and everything like that.
Yeah.
How do you think their rookie years were perceived? Do you think that they were doing enough to stand out?
It's hard for me to say without remembering or projecting my own feelings at the time, because personally, they were not standing out to me that much. I liked the members. I enjoyed some of their songs. I was engaged enough to make sure I caught when they were having a comeback. If I'm thinking back to the industry as a whole, I don't know how big of a footprint they were leaving at the time. But like you said, Love Bomb, Fun, these things saw a significant growth from what they were doing since debut. Many people enjoyed Love Bomb. A lot of people like Fun. I felt like I heard that chorus so many times just through various things. But to me, again, I don't think they were standing out. What was your viewpoint? Was your viewpoint the same, or was I not seeing the full picture here?
No, I think they were a pretty niche group.
Yeah.
At the time, there was the Produce 101, and then IOI had relatively recently finished their promotions. And then 101 was in the middle of their promotions at the time, and then Produce 48 was finishing up, or actually they may have debuted at that time already. Yeah, I think they debuted at that time already. So a lot of focus was mainly on those Produce groups during those times. And fromis9 was more of a niche type of group. I remember a fun story here is at KCON 2019, fromis9 did they used to do the relay dance video at KCON. So they still do the relay dance videos, the M2.
Yeah.
But they also did them at KCON with the fans. And I was there.
You son of a gun.
Show producer Greg Abisamis was also there. I was with him, as well as a friend of the show who I did not know at the time, Paul Becerra of Rice Squad was there as well.
Yes. Shout outs to Paul.
That was a really great experience. But at the time, Yeah, they were pretty niche. It was a pretty small fandom. I would say they were pretty niche, but they were growing and they had the push from CJE&M, the parent company of Mnet, and Promise 9 was progressing pretty rapidly with each release. But then all of that came to a halt when controversy struck. A few months after KCON 2019, both Promise 9 and Eyes 1 were in full swing when suddenly a huge controversy happened in the K-pop industry. And the controversy was about vote rigging and vote manipulation of Mnet's survival programs Produce 101, Produce 48, as well as Idol School. Can you tell me what happened then?
So in 2019, if you remember what I said in episode 1, 2019 was an insanely eventful year in K-pop. And one of the biggest things that went down that year was the Mnet voting manipulation scandal. I'm going to give you a macro view of it, and then I'll focus it back down on fromis 9. So this stemmed from the 4th season of Produce 101, which would ultimately debut the boy group X1. Viewers were suspecting Mnet of tampering with the votes, and while they admitted that there were some errors in that calculating, they assured that, hey, the final rankings were correct, and we're not gonna change the X1 members anyway. To put it simply, Ellis, chaos ensued after this. Viewers filed lawsuits, politicians were getting involved and condemning Mnet. Police were now investigating the situation. A key piece of evidence that came from that were they uncovered voice recordings of staff members allegedly discussing manipulating the votes for previous seasons of Produce 101. This would extend and kind of blow up the investigation to all of Mnet's competition shows, including the previous seasons of Produce 101, things like Show Me the Money, Superstar K. So now you fast forward, the head director, the chief producer, the general producer, all these guys were sentenced to varying jail time, up to 2 years for things like obstruction and fraud. That's how serious this was. The court would eventually release the name of trainees who were victims of the voting manipulation. Some were very sad situations because it was basically their last chance at this industry. And ultimately, X1 would disband for various reasons connected to this, obviously.
Do you remember what tipped off the fans?
No, I don't remember exactly what tipped off the fans.
I remember because it was so dumb.
Oh no.
The numbers, it may have been on like the final episode. The numbers of the votes were so formulaic. It was really suspicious.
What do you mean by formulaic?
Like you just multiplied numbers.
It's like a pattern.
Yeah, it was very patterned. Then people got really suspicious about the actual numbers, and these people started investigating more, and then it became a big deal. So that,
oh my God,
it was just a really dumb. I don't know which producer or which. Anyway, but that's essentially what happened.
Yeah. Now, how does this all tie into fromis 9? Unfortunately, they had a bunch of things hitting them all at once regarding their survival show that we previously mentioned, Idol School, which of course was on Mnet. First of all, one of the contestants was named Hae-in. If that name sounds familiar at all, she was previously a contestant on the very first season of Produce 101. Actually, she really stood out to me on that show, and to my pleasant surprise, eventually became the creative director for Kiss of Life. She is a huge reason why Kiss of Life are where they are today, leading her fellow Idol School peer, Natty, into the success she sees today, right? Actually, not too long before we started this podcast, Hae-in unfortunately announced that she was leaving their company. So to be honest, I'm a little worried about Kiss of Life going forward. She's done a phenomenal job with them up to this point. Anyway, following the voting manipulation scandal, more things were coming to light. And Hae-in did an expose kind of interview. Her father came out basically exposing CJE&M of rigging Idol School, claiming phony audition process, the horrible filming conditions, mistreatment overall, physically and mentally. And it's probably no coincidence that it was around this time we saw fromis 9 taking a very long hiatus after a period of significant growth. They didn't just disappear though, they were still somewhat active on social media and live streams, just not really any official activities or music releases.
Yeah, as you said, they were forced into hiatus. As a Flover, do you remember what this period was like? Just in case for the listeners, Flover is the fandom name of Promise Nine. So, as a Flover, what was this period like?
I mean, you can imagine, right? No music, no promotions, not really any content, maybe some social media activity or live streams of any. I imagine there were many new fans or fans that just got into them or maybe were a little bit more casual, slowly getting converted, that probably fell off because there wasn't much for them to keep coming back to. The K-pop world moves very fast. There's always another group, another artist, more music to spend your time and money on. So, if you were a hardcore fan at this time, it was probably hard to see the girls just stuck in this situation. They can't really say anything about it. They can't really do anything about it. X1 just disbanded, so who knows what's going to happen to fromis? And then you're also seeing the fandom dwindling down a bit. How were you feeling around this time?
I remember after the X1 disbandment, it was a little bit scary because we didn't know if Promise 9 was going to disband as well. They weren't really doing anything.
Yeah.
But they did kind of become YouTubers.
Exactly.
Or something like that. They pretty much just did videos and it didn't really amount to much because, it was a period of reflection, I guess, or hiatus. It was definitely a difficult time as a Flover. And like you said, I'm pretty sure they lost a lot of fans, especially Korean fans.
Yeah.
Like in Korea, this was huge. And Promise 9 became known as that rigged group.
Yeah.
Even more so than X1 and IZ*ONE 1.
Yeah, I mean, especially because a lot more came out about Idol School than X1's produced season. You know what I mean? Like you said, fans were tipped off right at the end, and then it was basically just the voting that sunk them. For fromis, it was everything about the show. It was on top of the voting. I can see why a lot of Korean fans probably just, I don't want to attach myself to this group anymore. It's kind of ruined, for lack of a better term.
Do you think the group would have reached the same success if it wasn't rigged?
That's hard to say. Despite what we've talked about their momentum being halted earlier, I feel like the success we saw later in their career was because of other factors. And if the rigging never became an issue, and if they never went on that hiatus and just stayed on the course they were on, maybe there would have been no feeling that they need to change as drastically as we would later see. I'm not sure if their careers would necessarily be better today. When in doubt, I'm just going to ask it right back to you. Let's say no voting scandal took place. Promise 9 was not dragged into this situation. They continued their steady rise with Love Bomb and Fun, and they're probably going to be sticking close to that going forward. Do you think they're more successful today? However you define that success.
So I have a bit of a hot take here.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how hot it is, but I believe that these groups are more successful when they were rigged because I don't think the general population has any idea on how to create a successful girl group or boy group.
Hot take, I completely agree.
So when the professionals actually put together the group, I think ends up being much more successful than if the general population voted in their favorite people. Because you take a look at shows today, assuming they're not rigged, like Universe Ticket.
Yeah.
How successful are these groups where they had fans voting? Yeah. And would those groups be more successful if they were rigged? I think they would have been. So for me, personally, I don't think they would have had the same success if the show wasn't rigged.
Yeah, I agree with your sentiment. Let's say I was producing a survival show. I would never do fan voting. It was like you watch our process and that's it. Whether I agree with the outcome or not, I would rather the companies do the selecting themselves than let us have any part in it, even if I disagree.
But you have to say it's undeniable that the illusion of being able to choose your favorite idols to create a group really skyrocketed the success of the Produce 101 groups.
Yeah.
But what if the vote rigging and vote manipulation was never revealed? What if the Mnet producers and whoever was handling those numbers, what if they were just a little bit smarter and they were able to cover it up and it was never revealed? What do you think would have happened with Promise 9?
I think they would have been quote unquote successful, but I'm going to go out on a limb and just speculate that they wouldn't have been as successful as they are today. If they were continuing the same direction, I might not be as big of a fan as I am today.
Do you think the adversity kind of helped make you a bigger fan, or maybe kind of gave them a little bit more success in the end?
It probably played a part. Everybody loves a comeback story. And just like within a survival show program itself, you need to see them go through that hardship before they come out on the other end. And seeing fromis_9 go through these things, go through these periods of hiatus and try to work around these difficulties, it makes you want them to succeed at the end. So that definitely played a part.
I think for me, personally, I think they would have been way more successful
Really?
if the vote manipulation was never revealed.
Okay.
Because a huge part of a K-pop group's success is domestic fan base.
Yeah.
And I think the vote rigging manipulation had impacted the domestic fan base so much that they were never able to truly recover.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion. But you take a look at groups like ATEEZ and Dreamcatcher. While they may have huge success abroad and internationally, not having domestic success has hindered those groups and similar other groups a lot. And I think fromis_9, personally, in my opinion, was just hindered a lot by the vote manipulation scandal, regardless of how much more success they had after the fact. But thankfully, fromis_9 was able to endure that period of reflection, which lasted about a year, and they came back stronger than ever. In September of 2020, fromis_9 would come back with the song Feel Good, Secret Code with a renewed sound. They had evolved and they came back with a more mature and feminine concept. We talked about this a little bit in one of the previous episodes, but I was a big fan of that song, big fan of the change, and you were as well, right?
Oh man. This is why I answered the previous question the way I did, because I feel like without those other things happening, this evolution might have never taken place. And I totally agree about the domestic fan base thing. That's like a whole other factor itself. But to me, this run that started with Feel Good, when they came back with a more mature and feminine concept, like you were alluding to, I can't put over enough how much I love this era of fromis_9. From Feel Good going onward, I call this a flawless run. I loved basically every title track they put out. The B-sides were great too. It was different than anything else we were seeing. It wasn't girl crush. It wasn't schoolgirl cutesy anymore. It's kind of hard to describe. It was more mature, like you said. It was still fun, and at times it was still bright. At other times, a little sexier. They never leaned too much one way or the other, and it just worked for me. It was flawless to me.
Yeah, and like I said, the way that I termed it or coined it is feminine. Now, I'm not saying that's original, but it was just a very strong feminine
that's a good
concept. But yeah, they came out with Feel Good, Secret Code after their hiatus. And then they followed that up in 2021 during the pandemic with my favorite fromis_9 song, We Go, in May. And shortly after that, they would end up moving from Off the Record or Stone, which was Mnet's recording label. They would end up moving to Playtis and Hybe, who had just recently acquired Playtis at that time. Their first comeback under the new agency would be Talk That Talk in September 1st, actually, which would end up being the first title track, their first music show win, which we've discussed multiple times at this point. I remember during that time, because it was during COVID, just watching a lot of videos, I remember just the quality of content that they were putting out since they had come back from their hiatus was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It was some of my favorite videos out of a K-pop group that I had ever seen. I still go back and watch those videos, these dance practices.
Yeah.
They were really creative and unique for me personally, because as a person who really enjoys photography and videography, I thought that they were just so well produced for such a simple dance practice video. I don't think groups were really doing the same type of thing.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this with G-Friend. I was also excited around this time, and you could really see that they now had the resources to back up the talent that everyone else saw that stuck with them. It was great to see.
Yeah. And then in 2022, they would come out with the massive hit DM. And I just remember the It's Live performances of that song
Yeah.
because, man, I keep going back to watching Hayoung doing the dolphin,
The note,
the
yeah.
whistle
So
register
good.
from that song. And then they would end with Stay This Way, which would come out on June 27th. And it was announced that Cutie would end up leaving the group. So they had the original contract from Idol School, which is not the typical 7-year contract.
No.
It was a shorter contract. And so their contract ended, and Cutie would end up going on her own way. She wanted to be more of an actress. And Promise 9 would end up becoming Promise 8. How did you feel at that time?
First of all, I was surprised they didn't change their name. I'm glad they didn't change their name. I was surprised that they renewed. I was surprised that...
Really?
Yeah, because around this time, you would assume that HYBE is preparing their own girl groups from scratch, quote unquote. So I felt like they would want to kind of shed other stuff. And like we talked about, fromis kind of their track record, their history wasn't very smooth. And I just felt like a big corporation like HYBE just wants to like wash their hands, let's start over. We got our own projects we can mold from the beginning. So I was happy. I was happy that they renewed. However, Gyuri leaving, I would have loved if she stayed. I was also happy for her to go and pursue what she was more passionate about. I do love her in dramas. I became more endeared with her through her acting roles, but I was also selfishly sad about it. And again, I'm glad they also kept the Fromis 9 name and didn't change it to something else and try to kind of refresh themselves.
Well, yeah, it's about branding, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be weird if you would change the branding. But for me, I was not surprised that Cutie left, but I was disappointed because I felt that she had such a major role in the group.
Yeah.
At the time, she was really big on variety shows. She was one of the most popular members. And I think a lot of people considered her the face of the group.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, so for her to leave, it was pretty disappointing. I know some Flovers who they thought that, hey, whatever, that's what she wanted. She's gone. She's not part of Promise 9 anymore. For me, I'm not that type of person. Regardless of whether they go on to do their own thing, I think they're still part of the group, you know, in spirit.
Yeah, same.
Even if they continue to promote with fewer members. But yeah, this kind of led into a slowdown in their releases. After Stay This Way, which came out again in 2022, they would not make another comeback until 2023, almost a full year later, on June 5th, with the full album and the title track, Me Now. So they came out with that, which was a great album. Really loved that album.
Yep.
I believe I had that title track, Me Now, like in my top 30 for 2023.
Oh, and speaking of our mutual friend Paul Becerra, shout out to him because I believe he thought it was meow.
Hashtag meow.
Hashtag meow, yeah.
I can see that. But yeah, after they came back with that, once they ended their promotions, again, they would pretty much do almost nothing for a very long extended period of time, up to the point where around May, I think it was, the girls would start calling out the agency. In particular, Lee Chae-young was, I believe, on a live stream where she spoke out and complained about the lack of work that Promise 9 was getting. Do you remember that?
I do. I don't really mind long periods of time between releases. Like, I was never one to complain about Blackpink's release frequency, as long as they release things I enjoy when they did. You know what I mean? Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't do many movies, but when he did, you paid attention and he gets nominated for Oscars. At the same time, I understand that not every artist has that luxury and not every artist wants that. And Chae-young's statement was really sad. She basically said, I wish we had teasers and that I could change my Weverse profile picture. And she was asking, why does it seem like they are the only ones with these long hiatuses? But the thing that made it more upsetting to me was that she eventually had to apologize for it. And then you knew at this point, it's a bit of a red flag in terms of where their career is going.
Well, it sort of worked because after she complained, they started getting a lot of calls from festivals and agencies that want to have Promise Nine perform.
Yeah.
And one of the major companies that sent out that love call was Waterbomb.
Yeah.
And they ended up performing at 3 or 4 maybe different water bombs. And that was a huge success for them.
Yeah, they got a lot of attention.
Yeah, so Waterbomb, if you weren't aware, it is a annual music festival which takes place in Korea, and they hold it in multiple cities, and recently it's been expanding internationally as well. Waterbomb was really well known for having these viral type of performances. Around the time when Waterbomb first started, there was some very viral performances from the likes of Sunmi and Hyuna. But essentially, Waterbomb, it's a music festival, but it's very water themed. So the attendees would get water guns and they'd be able to shoot the artists on stage with water guns, and the artists on stage would have water cannons and they would be able to shoot the audience with these water cannons. So it was a very fun and interactive music festival. And obviously, with all this water, it really led to some viral moments because of the outfits that these artists would wear, like shirtless or bikini tops, things of that nature.
Shirtless guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Shirtless guys. So Waterbomb was a big deal for Promise 9 because it was known that Waterbomb is kind of a trend maker, a trendsetter. And to be on Waterbomb was really a big deal. For a group like Promise 9 to be able to perform at Waterbomb was big for them.
No, I thought it was amazing. I was happy that they were getting so much attention from this because, after the first few initial Waterbomb clips blew up, I feel like a lot of artists were now trying to jump on that train, and Promise 9 being able to get that attention, especially after all the Chaeyoung stuff and the Hiatus stuff, I thought this was great and could only do good for their career.
Yeah, and after the success of these Waterbomb performances, they would come out with their next single on August 12th of last year, the song Supersonic. We had talked about our top songs of 2024 in the first episode, and Supersonic was personally my number 2 song of 2024.
Yes.
I love this song.
Yes.
And a lot of people also love this song.
Again, it continues what I call the flawless run. I also love this song. They just couldn't miss, Ellis. They couldn't miss.
Yeah, and this song ended up climbing the charts, the Melon Music charts, which is kind of the de facto standard of music charts in Korea. And it rose very high. It became a very popular song. They were winning. The performances were amazing. They were getting so much love. And they were pretty much rising to the top of the industry as far as music and girl groups go. They were at their peak, basically. They had never reached higher charting numbers, but shortly after, it was announced that their contracts with Playtis and Hybe were ending, and they wouldn't be continuing. Now that their second contract was ending, what did you think was going to happen with Promise 9?
I was already surprised that they renewed that first time around. So this time around, I guess I was more pessimistic about it because I didn't think there was a way we would get that lucky and they would, all sign together with someone. Like, yes, they were doing great, arguably better than ever. I just didn't think we would get that lucky. And I was probably being pessimistic about it more than trying to look at the evidence and see where they would go. I feared the writing was on the wall and this would be it for them. If you remember, fromis were scheduled to come to America to perform a couple years ago. And I was planning to go. It was the WeBridge Festival.
Oh, the $3,000 show.
Yeah. A big part of that is because I knew my chances of seeing Promise 9 were decreasing as time went on. And they ultimately canceled that appearance. And to me, my chances were now slim to none. So I didn't have that much hope that they were all going to re-sign somewhere else, to be honest. What about you?
Yeah, I also didn't have a good feeling. But I had hope. I wouldn't say that I would have given them a less than 10% chance to reunite,
Yeah.
but I was hopeful. I was thinking maybe 40%, 50% chance that they would figure something out as a full group.
Hmm.
But that didn't end up being the case. 5 of the members ended up joining this new agency called ASND, and I believe it's a new agency for them.
Hmm.
But the captain, Iserom, as well as Jisun and Soyeon would end up leaving the group. How do you feel about that?
I honestly don't know how to feel about it. I'm glad that the five are continuing together. And from what we've read, they will continue with the name from S9, which again, glad they're keeping the same name. I don't know. I'm on a more wait and see basis right now. Maybe because two of my holy trinity didn't even sign. So I kind of want to see where the other three members, like what they're going to do now. How do you feel? Are you more optimistic about this? Are you just glad that at least more than half of them are together?
Was their actual name confirmed that they're able to use it?
It was just in the reports. It was in the latest reports. I'll say that. I don't know if it's 100%.
Okay, well, I think they might still be trying to be able to use the name Promise 9. But regardless, I am pretty sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I generally don't like it when members leave groups, and it's hard for me to look at groups the same way. Like when Sujin was forced to leave Idol
Yeah.
or G Idol, and when Naeun left A-Pink, when just mentioned earlier, Gyuri left Promise 9,
Hmm.
and they became Promise 8. Now they're 5. You can imagine my disappointment is like very, very high.
Yeah.
But I still love these members, the 5 that they have. They still
Same.
have the great vocals of Jiwon and Hayoung, and then they still got the great dancing. They still have Jihyun's eye smile. So I think they will find a way. If not being super successful, making a lot of new music, I'm sure they will still be able to perform all the great hits that they already have.
Yeah.
But it's just been compounding issues that Promise 9 has had throughout their entire career. And honestly, as far as K-pop groups go, they've had their fair share, even more so, much more than average, I think, of adversities. Wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think any group that has to face as many obstacles as From His Nine did throughout their careers are not likely to see half the success From His Nine experienced. Again, however you want to define that success. I mean, just speaking about it today, I'm surprised they've made this much of a name for themselves and have had as long of a run together as they did. It's a miracle. So no matter what happens going forward, I am also sad, just like you, very disappointed, but I am also very thankful that we got what we have.
What do you think defines Promise 9's legacy so far? It's not over, but what we have so far, what do you think?
To me, it's success despite obstacles, like we just said. I feel like at every point in their careers, they had to face against something. And despite that, they continued to grow and rise, and they kept going and they kept rising, and they would hit another wall and they would keep going. And somehow we've made it this long. And now we're at this point where they've hit another kind of wall. But I don't see, like you said, I don't see how they don't just keep moving forward past this one as well. And I think that their legacy is that they are able to keep pushing forward. What do you think it is?
Yeah, I 100% agree, because for every adversity that they faced, they've moved through it, pushed through it, broke through that wall, and perhaps became an even stronger group.
Yeah, it came back stronger.
Because of it. So, you know what they say, doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. But
Yeah.
I do think a lot of that has to do with the members and the quality of the members that they have, the group.
Yeah.
And I think one of the defining characteristics of Promise 9, and it's not something that I don't think fans would have been able to put together or assemble a group like this, it's their skills and the way that they have continued to push themselves and perfect their craft as best possible. If you look at Promise 9 from when they debuted and their skill set then, and compare that to how much they've grown and their skill set now, I think the defining factor of Promise 9's legacy is not just pushing through adversity, but also the rate at which they've grown. And you take a look at the members and see where they were 7 years ago, and you see them now, and they're just top tier idols, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, when I look at them, I consider them one of the top groups when it comes to skill, when it comes to their chemistry, when it comes to everything they've done together.
What do you think it would be like if Promise Nine was managed by a different company from the start? It's well known that Off the Record isn't the greatest label. It's the Mnet House label.
Yeah.
And Playtis, it's well known that they do not do a great job managing their girl groups. If these idols, these 9, were under a different label as a group, for example, a larger label or at least a more stable label that would have managed them well, what level do you think they could have reached?
It's especially hard to speculate that about Fromis 9 because their career just took so many unexpected turns and like we said, so many roadblocks that they had to get over. On one hand, you would think, yeah, if they were under another label that was able to back them up financially with the right resources and were able to focus on them, they would have reached either this level or probably higher. I think your point about the domestic audience is a very good point. They probably would have had a more consistent growth in that fan base, which would only help them worldwide. But at the same time, I feel like those roadblocks that they faced led them in certain directions to be able to bounce back stronger than they were. They reinvented themselves a bit. And I'm not sure if they were in another company, but still faced the same things, I'm not sure how another company would handle it. Would another company have just given up at some point rather than re-sign them or try to push them in a new direction? I feel like a lot of companies would have given up at a certain point. But then to argue myself, if they were in another company, they may have been the sole focus of their efforts. Like you said, Off the Record, they're Mnet's in-house labels, so they were obviously focused on other produced groups or whatever they had going on. Hybe is obviously focused on, and eventually became focused on their other girl groups. I feel like Fromis may have never been the primary focus wherever they were. So I guess they could have reached a different level if they were. But I don't know. I go back and forth on it. What do you think?
For me, like I had mentioned, I just think the quality of talent and their hard work and skill level is just so high that I think if they were a full group under a more stable label and they didn't have the controversies and things of that nature, I think they would have been a top 3, if not top 3, top 5 girl group in the industry.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, just speaking of like just within themselves, like, yeah, those girls together, they could have done so much. I mean, they did do a lot. I don't want to say they didn't do a lot, but they had that caliber of talent.
So we've come to the point where I want to recommend some songs for our listeners. If you haven't listened to Promise 9, or maybe you are a listener of Promise 9, maybe you haven't heard some of these songs, or I don't know. I think it's just a good idea to recommend some songs. What are your top 5 title tracks in order?
Oh, this makes me laugh, dude. Ellis making me rank things.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna cheat. So first tier, I'll put Feel Good and Talk and Talk. Honestly, okay, Feel Good, Talk and Talk, and then right under that, DM and Me Now. I'll put right under that, and then right under that, I'll put We Go, Stay This Way, Supersonic. Those 3 tiers, that's my top 5 songs. Again, I just think it's a flawless run. From Feel Good on, I recommend all their title tracks. I do recommend a video. It's a video on the Blip YouTube channel, Blip, BLIP. It's them doing a medley from Feel Good all the way to Me Now. It's like they made this for me. It's one of my favorite Fromis 9 videos to watch, and it hits a lot harder now. So those are my quote unquote top 5 songs. What are your top 5 songs?
All right. So I did not actually prepare a list.
Nice.
So I'm looking at the list of title tracks right now. And number 1, I already know because this has been my number 1 since it came out. We Go.
Yeah.
Really absolutely love that song.
Love it.
It just came out at the right period of time during the pandemic, and the music video is amazing. The sound is amazing. The dance is amazing.
Yep.
It's just super catchy. Number 2 would be DM.
Yeah.
Again, the lyrics to that song, it's a love song. It's super sweet.
So good.
Really enjoyable to listen to, very catchy to sing along. And listening to Hayoung's vocals in that during the whistle register part, it's just unforgettable. Can't stop listening to it.
Chef's kiss.
Supersonic would be my number 3. I mentioned on the first episode, again, it was one of my favorite songs of 2024. And it's just so much energy. Really love that song. I would have loved to see it performed more, but unfortunately, we have right now. After that, it becomes really difficult. I would probably say Talk and Talk.
Yeah.
And then Stay This Way in that order.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, their entire discography is really good.
Yep.
So I do want to recommend some B-sides. And Justin, maybe you start first. Do you have 3 B-sides that you can recommend to our dear listeners?
Yeah, luckily this is just a list of 3. This was a little bit easier. The first one I'll recommend it's my favorite one. It's Blind Letter. It's a slower song. Shows a different side of fromis 9. I think it's a beautiful track. And, with the theme of writing letters, it's now a great 1-2 punch paired with their last single, From. The second B-side is coincidentally from the same album as Blind Letter. The album is called From Our Memento Box. And the song is called Up And. And for this one, I want to specifically suggest their performance of it at Weavers Con 2023. At the end, Jihan forgets to go back with all the other members. She's still dancing in the front of the stage where they're further back. And they call to her like in a very funny, cute way. And she laughs and she runs back. And then they wrap up the performance. But if you didn't know that before watching, so that was a mistake on her part. But if you didn't know that, you would have totally thought that was just part of the performance. It's a great song and it's a great showcase of their charm and their chemistry together. I really love that. And the last one, because I don't want to make it seem like I didn't like anything from their early days, I do recommend from their very first album, the song Miracle. It sounds very much a mixture of early fromis 9 and newer fromis 9. So I think it's a great gateway song. What are yours?
I'm really glad that there's no overlap in our songs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I do really love the songs that you mentioned.
Yeah.
A Miracle in particular. That was a great one.
Great. Yep.
But my absolute favorite fromis 9 B-side is a track called Airplane Mode.
Ah, yes.
And that was off of the EP 9-Way Ticket, or rather it was a single.
Mm-hmm.
It was the single Where We Go was the title track.
Yeah.
They also came out with a video for Airplane Mode at the time, and it was during the pandemic, and it was just such a great tone for the timing of the release. And I really like chill songs, and Airplane Mode is one of those, and the lyrics are just really enjoyable to listen to. So I highly recommend. My favorite B-side that fromis 9 has is Airplane Mode. Along that vein, off of the My Little Society EP, where Feel Good, Secret Code was the title track, there's a song called Weather.
Oh my God.
And Weather is another one of my favorite B-sides. It's another chill song. fromis 9 B-sides a lot of them are really just chill type of tracks. Chill guy. And Weather is on my night drive playlist. So I have a specific playlist that I like to listen to when I'm driving at night.
Oh, really? Okay, nice.
Yeah, and Weather is on that. Just a really nice chill song. And the last B-side that I want to recommend is a song called Escape Room off of the Midnight Guest EP, where DM was the title track, Escape Room.
I'm so glad I didn't do honorable mentions like I usually would, like 99% of the time, because 2 of them would have been Weather and Airplane Mode. So we would have crossed over on those.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy a lot of fromis 9 songs. Like pretty much all their B-sides are really enjoyable to listen to.
Yeah.
But I did want to try to limit it to just 3. And I'm glad that Justin and I didn't have an overlap there. But I think we really recommended 6 great songs for you guys to listen to if you are a casual fromis 9 listener. If you are not a fromis 9 listener, I'd recommend to check out the title tracks that we mentioned earlier as well. But I want to move on. We have a segment that I want to try to start doing, and I called it Prospect Patch. And prospect meaning the future, and patch like dispatch. And this is a segment where Justin and I will be making a news headline prediction, just one. And it could be any type of news headline. It could be something reasonable, realistic, something that we think may actually happen, or something that is far-fetched and may not happen, but it's something that we're just hopeful for. I already told Justin about this. I hope he has something prepared. In Prospect Patch, what is tomorrow's headline?
Okay. I had two. One was very realistic and one was not as much. So I'm going to give you the one that's not as much. So this one's a little bit of a hope, a wish, a dream, given the scenario we are in right now. My prospect headline is Serom and Soyeon to debut as a duo. I'm taking a bit of inspiration from real life. There was a group called The Ark, and two members from The Ark would later re-debut as a duo, both former YG trainees, just like Soyeon, with Soyeon, as a matter of fact, and their duo name was Khan, Khan. And you're going to love this part, Ellis. Their fantastic debut song, I love their debut song, was called I'm Your Girl, produced by Rado PD. The man is a genius. For those who don't know, Rado PD is the guy who oversees Stacy currently. And the reason I put this out there, it's an out there headline, but there's some realistic inspiration from it. One of those is that I know Soyeon is always following Serom's steps and what she does, taking cues from the captain. So I like to imagine she wants to stick with Serom, her captain, and Soyeon Serom debut as a duo.
Man, coming out with another recommendation. Man, that song is one of my favorite K-pop songs of the 2010s.
I love it. Oh my God. I didn't even,
That group is super underrated.
Yeah.
They did not have the greatest outcome, but that song is still a go-to for me. I always listen to that song.
It's so good.
And yeah, absolutely love that song.
Yeah.
What's your other headline?
All right, well, the other one is fromis 9 to reunite as 9 for their 10th anniversary. Special song, special concerts. And then as I was writing it, I was like, oh, maybe they do it for their 9th anniversary. Maybe that's more fitting, but that was the other one, yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling that it would be something along those lines because that's also my hopeful headline.
Yeah, that's why I gave the other one first.
But I'm going to do something super realistic here. And it will be fromis 9, now 5, comes back with a new track and set to perform at Waterbomb 2025.
Oh, okay. I could definitely see that.
I mean, it might not happen.
Yeah.
But hey, that's why we're prospecting headlines.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, so now I have my segment, Prospect Patch, and Justin has his segment, 10 years ago today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we'll move on to that. So 10 years ago today in K-pop, or this week, this one I wanted to talk about because when we started the show, it was just outside of the purview of the segment. But this week, on February 3rd, Hello Venus celebrated their 1,000th day anniversary. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this is not because of that headline, but because of a song that they had come out with the month before on January 5th called Wiggle Wiggle. Do you remember Hello Venus and do you remember this song?
I remember Hello Venus. I definitely remember Hello Venus. I wasn't as into them as, other groups, so I don't actually remember Wiggle Wiggle.
Wow, that's kind of surprising to me because Wiggle Wiggle, I hate saying it, Wiggle Wiggle was so viral at the time because of the production. It was a Brave Brothers production.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it was a Brave Brothers production.
Do I remember this song?
It was super viral as could be, with the state of social media at the time and YouTube.
Yeah.
Because of the dance and the song. And Wiggle Wiggle is one of my most hated K-pop songs.
Really?
I hate this song.
Why?
I don't think it's a good song. I think it's a terrible song. For me, lyrics are super important.
Yeah.
And Wiggle Wiggle's lyrics were terrible.
What could be so bad about Wiggle Wiggle?
Then my most hated K-pop song?
Yeah.
I hate this song. My most hated song is Rain's Rainism.
Really?
And it's catchy.
Yeah.
Just like Wiggle Wiggle. But the lyrics are so bad. They're absolutely terrible. And Wiggle Wiggle, I think Brave Brothers at the time, Jason Derulo had come out with a song called Wiggle.
I remember that song, yep.
And it was huge. It was a really big viral hit. At the time, Jason Derulo was coming out with track after track. And I think Brave Brothers took inspiration from Wiggle and created the song Wiggle Wiggle. Second gen K-pop was a different beast
Yeah.
than what we have today. And sexy was a big theme
Yeah.
during second gen. And Hello Venus, they had done a little bit of a reformation and they were coming off the success of a song called Sticky Sticky. So Sticky Sticky was, I believe, the first song after their little bit of a reformation. And it did pretty well.
Yeah.
So I guess Brave Brothers was like, let's just keep it going. So they went from Sticky Sticky to Wiggle Wiggle. And Wiggle Wiggle just like absolutely blew up. So many people were doing the dance and it just was like really viral. It's still a song that is played today. And I don't think it's a great song, but it is catchy.
Yeah, I need to listen to this. Maybe I do like recognize it, but I just don't remember what this is.
Yeah.
It would make sense that Brave Brothers produced it and then like it popped off because I felt like he always had his finger on the pulse. So
At the time.
I really like him as a producer. Yeah. At the time. Yeah.
At the time, he was the DJ Khaled of K-pop.
Yeah. He was the guy, man.
And another one. Sistar, Hello Venus, AOA, After School.
His history goes all the way back to Big Bang and like YG days. So every time I heard his, what do you call it? Tag?
Brave sound.
Yeah. I was so excited.
So yeah, I mean, Hello Venus celebrated their 1,000 day anniversary. Technically, it wasn't really 1,000 days. It was 1,000 days since the formation of the group.
Yeah.
Like the new members, it was only just like a year for them. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I think Wiggle Wiggle was really one of the defining moments of K-pop at that time. It was really that big. I'm really surprised that you didn't remember that.
I'm going to go back. And listen.
The next thing I want to talk about is an artist named McKay debuted with his song Angel to Me. Do you know McKay?
Ellis, I was going to say, I don't even know who McKay is. Who is McKay?
And I'll be honest, I have no idea who McKay is either. The reason why I put this in is because I recognized the name. And when I looked it up, he was actually one of the final 10 contestants of K-Pop Star 2.
Oh.
And we just had a big discussion today about music survival show programs.
Yeah.
And K-Pop Star was kind of the OG music show survival program.
A lot of stars came out of, the first initial seasons, even if they didn't win.
Did you watch K-Pop Star 2 or any K-Pop Star?
Probably in the beginning because it was such a cool concept because in this particular case, it was the head of the companies, YG, JYP. It was the head of the companies making the decision. So I thought it was fascinating at first.
Yeah, there are a lot of viral memes came out from that show and are still continue through to this day. But the premise is essentially the judges are the heads of the big three agencies. In this case, YG was Yang Hyun-suk, JYP is Park Jin-young, and for SM, the representative was not Isuman, but it was Boa.
Who better?
And the contestants would go onto this show and they would perform, and the winner would be guaranteed a debut of the company of their choosing.
Yeah.
And a lot of the runner-ups would end up debuting as well. The companies ended up signing a lot of these runner-ups. And the winner of K-Pop Star 2 was actually Akdong musician, Akmu. And one of the other famous names that came out of K-Pop Star 2 was Bang Yedam, who ended up debuting in the boy group Treasure and is now a solo artist.
Super talented.
Yeah, so 10 years ago today, or yesterday, February 6th, McKay debuted with his single, Angel to Me. Next is another headline that I'm pretty sure you're not going to really know anything about. Very Good, the girl group Very Good, would come out with their second single, Because of You, on February 9th, which is actually a couple days later. Do you know Very Good?
I do know Very Good, but the only thing I know about Very Good is their member Jo Hyun. I feel like she was just, her face and her name was just everywhere. But yeah, that's the only thing I know about Very Good. I didn't really listen to their music or anything like that. Were you a fan?
So I had a feeling that you would say something like that. And yeah, I didn't know Very Good until Jo Hyun joined the group. And she's actually one of the members' cousins, I think.
Oh.
The second single, Very Good, actually also had a reformation. This is a really common thing in second gen K-pop. So Very Good had a reformation, and then they came out with the second single. It was called Because of You. And I only know a few Very Good songs after Johyun debuted with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know this song at all, but this was the song where the other member that I know, Taeha, who is Johyun's cousin, she debuted with this song. And I went to go check this song out when I was looking up what happened 10 years ago today. And man, it is rough. This was second gen K-pop at its rawest form.
Would you put it over Wiggle Wiggle? That's the question.
No. It wasn't good. It wasn't good in any way. There's a reason why Very Good was not successful.
Oh gosh.
They had minor success when Johyun debuted, but yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there because I thought it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago today, Very Good came back with their second single, Because of You, with new members. A lot of those members would go on to form the Very Good that most people know after Johyun joined the group. But yeah, that came out on February 9th of 2015. The last thing that happened 10 years ago today, on the same day, February 9th, 2015, 4-Minute, big second-gen K-pop group, 4-Minute, came out with their second-to-last single, Crazy, what would become their second-to-last single. Do you remember that song? Because that was a really big song at the time. I'm sure you know this.
Oh, 100%. Thinking back on it, I feel like a lot of people, when you think of 4-Minute now, this song is the one that comes to their mind. This sound and this concept, this style that they portrayed during this comeback. I feel like that's what they think about. For me, it's not. Just because before this, I liked a lot of other 4-Minute songs. It's kind of crazy, pun unintended, that this song was so big. And it was their second to last single, yet it kind of defined them for a lot of fans, a lot of later fans, I guess. It even influenced other Cube girl groups. CLC had a song called Hobgoblin, which a lot of people compare to 4-Minute Crazy. And I think Hyuna had a hand in Hobgoblin, which makes sense. But yeah, I got surprised because I also looked up when this song was added to our topics list here. I was like, wait, when did they disband? And it was not that much longer after this. So the timeline of this, I didn't remember, but the song I definitely remember.
Yeah, so you're actually the one that reminded me about this.
Yeah.
But Crazy was a major shift in 4-Minute's direction.
Yeah.
And they would only go on to come out with one more song after that, which I'm sure we'll talk about again in the future, which was called Hate. And that, as you said, that sound kind of defines what a lot of people think of when they think of 4-Minute.
Yeah.
Because it was such a big success for them. It was not actually their biggest success.
No.
That's reserved for their earlier songs like Music and
Hot Issue.
Yeah, Mirror Mirror and What's Your Name? What's your name? What's your name?
Yeah, see, that's what I think about when I think about 4-Minute. So this defining them is like insane.
Yeah, they had a lot of number one hits, but Crazy never actually reached that peak, but it was just so well received, both by the general public and critically, that it became one of the defining moments of their careers. So that's why I felt like we had to talk about that. Was 4-Minute up there for you as far as girl groups go?
Back then, maybe. It's kind of funny though. I was talking about what I think of when I think of 4-Minute. I don't even think of anything close to this kind of concept. I don't know if you guys remember the song Heart to Heart. It's like nothing you would even associate with 4-Minute, but to me, that's what I think of. It's my favorite song of theirs, so.
And I remember at the time, I was so impressed with 4-Minute because I really loved 4-Minute, first of all.
Yeah.
But they were doing something that other groups weren't doing, in the sense that they would come out with Japanese songs, but they were original Japanese songs. A lot of K-pop groups back then, they would just take their Korean songs and release it in Japanese.
Yeah.
But 4-Minute would come out with songs originally in Japanese. One of them was First, really big fan of First. But yeah, my favorite song is probably either Music or Mirror Mirror or What's Your Name? I was actually a really big 4-Minute fan back then. I did end up getting to see them
Oh my God.
at the Korean Music Festival in LA back then. And one of the highlights of my lengthy K-pop fandom. And
Today's episode is about groups that Ellis has seen that Justin has not seen?
Yeah, I actually got a couple of them to sign my album.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a cool experience. And maybe it's something that we'll discuss more in a future episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is getting a little long, so we'll end it here. 10 years ago today, or this week, technically it's a couple days later, 4Minute, they came back with their song Crazy on February 9th, 2015, which would end up being their second to last single. How do you feel about this week's segment?
Event-wise, not too much was going on this week. I guess 2015 needed 1 week break for all the crazy stuff we talked about in the previous weeks. I guess Crazy makes up for that because it was such a big hit at the time. And I really do want to go back and listen to Wiggle Wiggle.
Yeah, it was a little bit of I was stretching a little bit trying to get some of these headlines in.
Actually, I want to listen to Because of You too, just because of your review of it.
Yeah, well, don't spend too much time on it. Yeah, so 10 years ago today in K-pop. So today we covered the first 7 years of Promise Nine's work. How would you rank them amongst fourth generation girl groups?
Oh, is Ellis making me rank things again? This one I don't have an answer for you. I think that's impossible for me to say off the top of my head. Although I do I don't know. They have a special place in my heart amongst the fourth generation, partly because of what we talked about, how far they went from all the setbacks they had and that flawless run. Oh my gosh. What would you rank them?
Yeah, it's tough because there's so many amazing fourth gen girl groups.
Yeah.
From large agencies like aespa, ITZY, New Jeans, Le Sserafim, IVE,
Stacy.
just to name a few. Stacy.
Sorry, take a shot, guys.
Gotta mention Stacy. But Promise Nine is undeniably a very sweet note in K-pop history. I can't say that I would rank them top 5 out of all K-pop fourth generation girl groups, but definitely I would put them in the top 10. As far as survival program girl groups go, however, they're definitely up there for me. Maybe top 3.
Yeah, I don't know where I would rank them, but if you were to grant me the power to kind of revive one of them back to their original state, I might pick Promise Nine. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Well, that's going to end our discussion for today on Promise Nine and their legacy. Thanks again for joining me, Justin. Do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. While I'm a little sad, I think going through everything today, I'm very, very grateful for everything Promise Nine has given us already. I'll be listening to their music for years to come, and let's see what they do together from here. Maybe we'll get a reunion of some sort as well. And final thought, one more thing, just to current and future, label heads, creative directors, boardrooms planning your next K-pop group, stop putting the number of members in your group names. I feel like you're just asking the universe for trouble. Don't do it. Heed my warning, and I love you, Promise Nine.
That's all for today, Friday, February 7th, 2025. This has been Diaries of an MZ Generation, hosted by Ellis Tan and Justin Lee. This is a production of Selective Hearing and is a part of the Selective Hearing network of podcasts. Edited by Ellis Tan and Greg Abesamis. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.